In the third year of my secret crush on Adrian Thorne, I married him. A year later, at a ski resort, his friend and I were in an accident at the same time. Adrian raced over, shielding his female friend as they tumbled to the ground. As I fell onto the snow, I suddenly felt how utterly pointless it all was. And when something is pointless, all you can do is throw it away. On my first wedding anniversary with Adrian, we went to Switzerland. At a private ski resort owned by his friend, I met Chloe Shin. She was a woman completely at odds with her gentle-sounding name. She wasn't conventionally beautiful, but she possessed a unique vitality. She excelled at extreme sports. I heard she and Adrian had first met on a ski slope. Chloe and I were skiing down, one after the other. As we approached a curve, her ski pole suddenly dropped. I tried to brake sharply but couldn't, and my skis came off. As I instinctively curled up and rolled down the slope, a dark figure sped towards us from the side. A flash of silver from the band on his arm caught my eye. I knew it well. I had personally fastened it for Adrian half an hour earlier. Adrian rushed towards Chloe. With sheer arm strength, he scooped her up as she was losing control. My back slammed into the safety netting of the ski run. The intense pain made my vision go black, accompanied by the shocked cries of the crowd. Through the dizziness, I saw Adrian roll over to shield Chloe with his body as chunks of snow pelted his back. I gasped for air, my nose and mouth filling with snow. It was freezing and painful. The snow melted with my breath, and as I looked down, something warm dripped onto the ground. I stared at the red stain on the snow for 2 seconds before realizing it was blood. People rushed to my side. A foreign rescuer started speaking to me in urgent English. My ears were ringing. My vision was blurry, and I couldn't understand a word he was saying. Adrian immediately scrambled up and ran towards me, so hastily that he stumbled on the hard-packed snow. Stella. He didn't dare move me rashly and turned to communicate with the rescuer. I tilted my head and saw Chloe through the crowd. She looked like she had just gotten to her feet and was brushing snow off her clothes. The moment our eyes met, she looked down at me and smiled. For some reason, I found myself smiling back. The smile turned into a cough, and my mouth filled with the taste of blood. Everyone froze. Adrian leaned over me, his eyes red. Stella, say something. Don't scare me. I couldn't speak. Too many voices were jumbled together, drilling sharply into my ears. Adrian lifted me into his arms. The familiar scent of his woody cologne mixed with the cold air, and I leaned into his embrace. His heart was racing. His hands were shaking. He looked terrified. In the midst of the chaos, I asked very quietly, just now, why didn't you save me? Adrian's whole body stiffened. He didn't answer. I don't know if he didn't hear me. When I woke up, Adrian was on the phone. It's nothing serious. They did a full check. Up. Just a few scrapes. He had taken off his ski jacket, revealing his tall, lean figure, broad shoulders and a narrow waist. The cut on his forearm was still untreated, and his pants, soaked with melted snow, hadn't been changed. It seemed he had been sitting by my bed the whole time. I smelled a faint floral scent and turned my head to see a vase of stargazer lilies. Adrian's gentle voice drifted over. Don't just brush it off. Did you go get it checked? I suddenly realized who was on the other end of the line. Adrian hung up and saw that I was awake. His expression relaxed considerably. He hurried to my side. Are you hurting anywhere else? I didn't speak, just stared at the lilies by the bed. Chloe just sent those over. Adrian paused. Stella, about what happened when you two were skiing. Throw them away. I interrupted, meeting his gaze with a slight smile. Throw the flowers away. Adrian's jaw tightened. After a few seconds of silence, he tossed the lilies into the trash can. Outside the window was the Swiss winter sky, a cold, grayish blue. In the distance, a snow-capped peak reflected a faint pink twilight. It was a sign that more snow was coming. Chloe and I have been friends for over 10 years, Adrian said, standing against the quiet backdrop. Stella, I can explain. There's no need to explain, I said, looking at the face that had captivated me for 4 years. Let's get a divorce. Snow began to fall outside. Adrian's back was to the light, and I couldn't see the expression on his face. Stella, there is nothing between her and me but friendship. He sighed, looking exhausted. Can you stop being so emotional all the time? It was strange. I didn't feel a shred of anger. I just thought, what are you so tired of? Shouldn't I be the one who's tired? I'm not being emotional. The bandaged wound on my right arm throbbed faintly. I'm not discussing this with you. I'm informing you. If it's because I didn't save you, then I apologize, Adrian said, his tone softening. It was my fault. But from my position at the time, saving Chloe was the most direct option. I know. A logical analysis. I said. You were closest to her. If she lost control, she would have hit the rock face. I was only going to hit the safety net. Adrian fell completely silent, a frustrated look on his face. But he quickly regained his usual composure. You're emotional right now. We won't talk about this, he said. We'll go back home after you've fully recovered. Can you understand plain language? My throat was dry. I repeated myself. I am informing you that I want a divorce. Just because of this. Adrian sounded impatient. Why do you always stop thinking clearly whenever she's involved? A torrent of emotions, grievance, confusion, anger, surged, making my nose sting. It was a familiar feeling. What else? In a moment of crisis, my husband saves his old friend instead of me. I emphasized the words. Old friend. If I don't divorce you, should I keep you around for the holidays? Adrian stared at me for a few seconds, then said flatly, just focus on getting better for now. I stayed in Switzerland for a week. The day I left, I sent the divorce papers to Adrian. He was in a meeting and, as usual, didn't reply immediately. I wasn't surprised. Adrian always responded to his secretary faster than he responded to me. The Thorn family had built their fortune in traditional auto manufacturing. For years ago, Adrian struck out on his own and founded an electric vehicle company, Odyssey. He was in Switzerland to negotiate a major international partnership. The representative from the partner company happened to be Chloe Shin, Adrian's childhood friend of over a decade, and thus, the accidental ski trip. During my week of recovery, I didn't see Adrian. A caregiver he had hired kept me company. Adrian was busy with work. His silence was a unique form of thorn, cold shoulder. Every time before, I had been the one to break and give in first. While waiting for my flight in Zurich, I ran into a fan, a young woman. She shrieked with delight upon seeing me, which made me feel a bit awkward and uneasy. I had been out of the spotlight for a year. The entertainment industry moves incredibly fast. I never thought anyone would still remember me, let alone that we would meet in the Northern Hemisphere. I felt unworthy of such affection. The girl took a photo with me and got my autograph. As we were boarding, she hesitated and asked softly, Stella, are you okay? Tears fell without warning. I blinked, but for the life of me, I couldn't say the words. I'm fine. The girl fumbled to wipe my tears away. Stella, will you come back? Yes, I said, crying and laughing at the same time. My voice choked. I'm making a comeback. A year ago, the actress Stella had retired from the screen for love. Her fame and infamy both vanishing. Now that the love was gone, it was time to return. I arrived in the capital the next morning. I turned on my phone to dozens of missed calls and unread messages, all from Adrian. I ignored them all. The long flight had drained me. I took a taxi to the apartment where I lived before my marriage. After a moment of hesitation and a few deep breaths, I finally dialed my former agent's number. The call was answered on the last ring. Lucas, he chuckled. Well, does Mrs. Thorn have time to call me now? His voice was clear and gentle, but his words were laced with a cold sarcasm. It had been so long since I'd heard it. I felt a little dazed. Lucas, I said after a few seconds of silence, getting straight to the point. I want to come back. You think you can just come back whenever you want? Lucas's voice was unreadable. Stella, what did I tell you a year ago when you quit at the peak of your career? Being blinded by love never ends well. Now you're tired of playing the rich man's wife. You realize love isn't reliable, and you want to come back. The one thing this industry isn't short on is new talent. The world doesn't work that way. I said nothing, listening to Lucas vent. When he paused, I said softly, Lucas, please help me. Lucas took a deep breath. Stella, did I owe you in a past life? I smiled silently. How high media? 8 in the morning. The day after tomorrow. Lucas hung up quickly, as if afraid he would change his mind. The apartment had gathered a layer of dust from being empty for so long. While the cleaning service worked, I smoked on the balcony. My phone rang. It was the 21st call from Adrian. I didn't move, just exhaled a puff of smoke. As the screen went dark, I found it amusing. It was the first time I hadn't answered his call. I had a dream, fragmented yet vivid. It was the Swiss ski resort again. The first time I saw Adrian, he was dressed all in black, tall and cool, a man of few words. His goggles and beanie covered most of his face. He stood against the white snow, broad-shouldered and lean. The wind rustled his short hair, revealing a glimpse of his high, bridged nose and sharp jawline. A female friend who was with me whispered, "Adrian Thorne, the second son of the Thorne family, a true prince." In my dream, I smiled. Seeing is believing. The dream twisted into a bizarre landscape. The ice pierced my chest, and my skis came off again. The familiar feeling of losing control sent my heart plummeting. At the last second, a dark figure sped in from the side. Not for me. The moment that voice echoed in my mind, I crashed into the snow. In the distance, Adrian rolled over to shield Chloe. I woke with a start. The white curtains fluttered. It was just before dawn. The digital clock beside me showed 8:10 p.m. Capital Time. I was drenched in a cold sweat, gasping for breath. I slowly covered my face with my hands. For years ago, in Switzerland, Adrian had indeed saved me when my skis came off. When I opened my eyes, safe and sound, my goggles had fallen off, and I saw Adrian's aristocratic face. And so, a blizzard fell in my heart, marking the beginning of my 3-year crush and 1-year marriage. The day our families arranged the marriage, we met. His attitude was cold. He didn't recognize me. Adrian had forgotten. Getting ready to go to How High. I spent a long time trying on outfits, but nothing felt right. It had only been a year since I'd left the industry, but the absolute confidence I once had under the public eye had completely vanished. "Serves you right," Lucas said, placing a coffee in front of me. "This is what happens when you play the part of a wealthy housewife for too long. You lose your mind." He was wearing white casual pants and a light gray cardigan, his hair in a wolf cut. He wasn't conventionally handsome, but he had a gentle, refined air, until he opened his mouth and revealed his sharp-tongued nature. I lowered my eyes. Lucas was right. I couldn't argue. Adrian was a cool, reserved man, uninterested in romance. His social circle was small and exclusive. All his energy focused on his career. Before I married him, I'd heard many people joke that he was a high mountain flower, a prize no one could claim. For years ago in Switzerland, he saved me. Before the Stockholm Syndrome could even fade, I was told to go meet my arranged marriage partner. On paper, my father's tech company had 3 heirs, all sons. As the only illegitimate daughter, I had no right to refuse. Falling in love with Adrian was perhaps due to my desperate need for affection. Or perhaps the timing of it all was just too perfect. So perfect that I mistook it for fate. It was winter. I waited for half an hour in a private cafe, my anxiety growing. Adrian took off his overcoat, bringing the cold from outside with him. He gave me a polite nod. "Miss White." I turned my head. Outside the window, the sky was dark with clouds. A blizzard was coming. Even then, I knew I couldn't escape this storm. "I can help you." Lucas's voice pulled me from my memories. After all, we've been friends for over 10 years. I took a sip of coffee, hiding the faint smile on my lips. The term, old friend, had a complicated meaning for me now, though I hate to admit it. You are the most talented actor I've ever managed. You're a hard worker. You have great instincts. And most importantly, that face of yours has a natural appeal to audiences. Lucas paused, his objective tone suddenly shifting. "A pity you didn't cherish it. You have something wrong with your head." I blinked. He was right. There was no arguing with that. "I can get you resources. A comeback won't be difficult," Lucas said, looking me in the eye. "But Stella, I need you to tell me." His words were so serious that my heart instinctively tightened. "Did you quit because you loved Adrian Thorne? Or are you the type of person who throws everything away the moment you fall in love?" I froze. The coffee I was holding spilled onto the back of my hand. It was hot, but my reaction was a beat too slow. Lucas glanced at it and handed me a tissue. "For now, I'm not going to get into whether you're back because you had a fight with Adrian and you're playing some kind of wronged wife and powerful CEO game. I was about to protest, but Lucas silenced me with a raised hand. Even if it's not him, if there's an Adrian Thorne, there can be a Daniel Thorne, a Samuel Thorne. Stella, love is a life lesson, Lucas said. If you don't figure this out, you will fall into this kind of trap again and again. When I returned to my apartment from How High, I found Adrian waiting outside my door. The sight of him made me feel a strange sense of déjà vu. Not because he was there, but because he was dressed exactly as he had been the day we first met for our arranged marriage. A black overcoat over a three-piece gray suit, looking travel, worn and carrying the biting chill of winter. At the sound of my approach, Adrian looked up. His brow bone was high, giving his gaze an intense pressure. Just like the way he was looking at me now, it was a mixture of blame and worry. Blame that I had returned to the country without his permission. We looked at each other in silence for a long moment before he stepped aside. The moment the door opened, a familiar woody scent enveloped me. The bag in my hand dropped to the floor as Adrian pulled me into an embrace, pressing me against the door. The entryway was dark. The tip of his nose brushed against my neck. Adrian's voice was low and hoarse. Baby, don't be angry anymore. Okay. I pushed his face away from my neck and asked softly, what do you think I'm angry about? Adrian froze for a few seconds. That day, when your skis came off, I didn't save you first. So, I smiled faintly. Shouldn't I be angry? The atmosphere grew tense again. Circling back to the same issue, for someone like Adrian, who always pursued efficiency, being unable to solve the root of a problem after multiple attempts was frustrating. But I already explained. Chloe's position meant she was certain to hit the rock face. She would have actually died. The familiar impatience flickered in Adrian's eyes. He seemed genuinely unable to comprehend. I made the most logical choice. Between emotions and a life. Don't you know which is more important? I know, I said, leaning against the door and looking at him with a small smile. My nose stung, and I had to keep blinking. But it still hurts. A tear fell onto the back of Adrian's hand, making him flinch. Before I married him, I knew this man was overly rational. You could even say he was emotionally inept, a congenital defect. But I didn't believe it. Love had clouded my judgment. I was foolish enough to think I could save him. As it turns out, playing the saint in a relationship is a fool's game. Not only do you fail to save them, you end up sacrificing yourself. Just because of a little hurt, Adrian said, gently wiping my tears. His words incredibly cruel. You choose to get a divorce. Or is it because of Chloe? You've never liked her. As if he had found his proof. Adrian said quickly, Stella, after this project is over, I can cut ties with her. No, I interrupted, turning my face away. It's because you don't love me. I had spent a year with Adrian, pouring all my affection and love into our relationship, only to arrive at this devastating conclusion. If I didn't love you, I wouldn't have married you. Adrian blinked slowly, an expression rarely seen on his face. Marriage means we share mutual interests. I went against my own logic to enter this project with incalculable risks. His voice dropped suddenly, and he spoke very slowly. How can you say I don't love you? The familiar exhaustion and the futility of trying to communicate washed over me again. I cupped his face. Then it's because I don't love you anymore. Do you understand now? Adrian, I said, enunciating each word. I don't want to be a part of this project anymore. I'm pulling my investment. A bitter sorrow rose from the depths of my heart, choking my throat and nose. I said hoarsely, does that make sense to you? Does that fit your logic? The stubble on Adrian's temples pricked the soft pads of my fingers. A strange mix of an itch and a slight sting. Just a week ago, he had held me on the bathroom counter. He was washing his face, and I was laughing as I wiped a stray bit of foam from his temple. Go back and sign the divorce papers, I said, my hand gently brushing past his temple to his deep-set eyes. I smiled. Since it's a project, you have to allow it to go bankrupt. Let's part on good terms, Mr. Thorne. Adrian flew back to Zurich that night. The next day, while I was in Lucas's office discussing work, I received a message from him. 3 short words. I've arrived. I stared at the screen, unsure of what I was feeling. Adrian never bothered with such trivialities as checking in. In our year of marriage, only I had tirelessly reported my whereabouts to him. I've arrived. I'm heading out. Honey, I'll probably be home around 9 tonight. I held up a hand to pause Lucas and replied, "If you've reviewed the divorce agreement and everything is in order, please sign it as soon as possible." Adrian didn't reply. I wasn't bothered. I locked my phone and returned to our conversation. "I want to audition for Vincent Liu's new film." Lucas raised an eyebrow. "You know the lead actress has already been cast. The role you're talking about is the third female lead." Vincent Liu, an internationally renowned director of Chinese descent, was known for using new talent. The actresses he chose often shot to fame with a single film. "And the third lead doesn't have much screen time," Lucas said. "Can you swallow your pride and play a supporting role to a newcomer?" "Why not?" I said nonchalantly. "The screen time may be short, but her character has the most complete growth arc I wanted." Lucas never interfered much with my creative choices. "There's a popular reality show on Mango TV. I'll get you on it. Consider it a welcome back gift." "Stella." "The comeback buzz and promotional hype are already in motion," Lucas said, smiling at me. "This time, don't let me down again." I looked at him seriously. Never again. Love. That life lesson. I had lived through it, and I already had my answer. After my work schedule was released, I entered a hectic routine to get back into peak condition. I resumed my intense fitness regimen and vocal training. It was difficult to adjust at first. During a break, I scoffed at myself. A year of being a wealthy housewife had made me too comfortable. So comfortable that it had dulled my ambition and spirit. Adrian also returned to the country around this time. He contacted me twice, using the excuse of discussing the terms of the divorce agreement. I treated it as a business matter and told him to speak with my lawyer. There was a 2-second pause on the line before Adrian suddenly said, "Stella, Susan asked me today what flowers to order for tomorrow." I froze. Outside the window, the clouds were dark and heavy. I suddenly remembered the forecast had predicted snow. An indescribable feeling settled in my chest. A dull ache. I think I'm just now noticing that the flowers at home are always different, and the garden is so beautifully kept. Adrian's voice was low. "I looked at the photos you took. Each season is so different. In 1 week, it will be our first wedding anniversary." I said nothing, even though I had spent a long time preparing for this anniversary before we went to Switzerland. Susan also asked if we should change the brand that sends my clothes. Adrian chuckled softly. "How is it that every outfit you pick for me fits so perfectly?" "Adrian, with your resources, you can hire a professional to manage the garden, and you can choose from countless professional stylists," I said calmly. "These are not irreplaceable things. Don't you agree?" I hung up the phone and took several deep breaths until the tightness in my chest slowly dissipated. When I had calmed down, I checked the time. It had taken 12 minutes. Good, I thought. You're making progress. A light, fine snow began to fall outside. So delicate, so pure and beautiful. No matter how long the winter, it will eventually pass. The day I filmed the reality show, my name trended twice. Topics ranged from my retirement for love to speculation about a divorce. Fueled comeback. The opinions were varied. Lucas was quite pleased. The entertainment industry thrives on controversy. After all, only nobodies are ignored. "You've still got it, Stella," he said, patting my shoulder. "A year ago, you were a storm of controversy. You've come back, and that it factor hasn't changed." I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. The day before I joined Vincent Liu's film set, I went back to our apartment in the city center. It was our marital home for the past year. It wasn't a weekend, but surprisingly, Adrian was there, wearing light gray loungewear, looking somewhat dejected. This was rare for him. He was the type of high-energy person who could pull an all-nighter and be perfectly fine after a cup of coffee. The master bedroom was clean and tidy, still holding the faint scent of my perfume. Susan had already packed most of my things, but there were some personal items I needed to sort through myself. Adrian followed me around like a shadow, not saying a word. As I was leaving, I glanced over and saw the half-wilted white roses on the bedside table. I had put them there myself before we left for Switzerland. That night, as Adrian held me, the roses had swayed with our movements. In a haze of passion, I had playfully asked Adrian for a child. As always, he had refused, saying he was too busy with work. I lowered my eyes. As I turned to leave, Adrian suddenly wrapped his arms around me from behind. He held me tightly, almost leaning his full weight on me, as if seeking something. He buried his face in my hair and let out a contented sigh. I know I was wrong, but I don't know why I was wrong. His voice was low and hoarse. I've been seeing a therapist. I'm getting treatment. Baby. Adrian murmured into my neck. Give me another chance, please. Adrian never bowed his head. He was gifted, born into wealth, successful in both his studies and his career. His status meant he never had to empathize with others. He didn't need pointless compassion. I had refused to believe it, walking into his life full of love, only to be bloodied and broken. Adrian, I said softly, I've already given you many chances. His body stiffened. I broke free from his embrace. I held my bag in one hand, and with the other, I circled his wrist. This is the master bedroom, I said suddenly. Every time you were in the study, I would wait for you by the bed. Adrian didn't seem to understand. But you're so hard to wait for. Why do you love work so much? You're either working late at the RD center or in a meeting in your study. Meetings at home. Meetings abroad. One after another. Many times. You weren't there when I fell asleep. And you weren't there when I woke up. In this bed. We made love more times than we hugged. Adrian was about to speak, but I was already leading him out of the bedroom. This spiral staircase. When I was waiting for you in the reading nook, I could always tell your mood from your footsteps. Slow and light meant you were in a good mood. Hurried and heavy meant work wasn't going well. But most of the time, your steps were steady and unhurried. Adrian realized what I was doing and called out urgently. Stella. I ignored him and went down to the living room. I waited here too, but mostly alone. In our year of marriage, we sat on this sofa together 35 times. I blinked hard, suppressing the stinging in my eyes. That's the kitchen. I made you countless hangover soups and late-night snacks. You don't like Susan's cooking, I said, turning to face him. Of course you don't. You're so picky. Weren't you spoiled by me? Adrian's eyes were red, his chest heaving. He tried to speak, but no sound came out. I've waited too many times, I said. My decision made. I don't want to wait anymore. The air was silent, so quiet I could hear the wind outside. The forecast said that this winter, the city would experience a blizzard, the likes of which hadn't been seen in over a decade. Adrian, I said, looking at the hand that gripped my wrist so tightly the veins stood out. Do you know where we first met? The cafe downstairs from my office. He answered quickly. It was winter, the day before Christmas. No. I shook my head. It was in Switzerland. Adrian froze. The same ski resort. You saved me when my skis came off, I said. For years later. Between me and Chloe. Both with our skis off. You saved Chloe. I didn't know. Adrian was almost incoherent, losing his logical train of thought for the first time. I was wrong. I did the wrong thing. I shouldn't have analyzed the situation. I should have saved you first. No, I repeated, my voice choked with tears. You still don't understand. Adrian's eyes were bloodshot. He roared. Then teach me. My breath caught. After a long moment, I gave a sarcastic laugh. I taught you for a year, and you didn't learn. Adrian, loving you, I swallowed, gathering the courage to continue, is something I've never regretted. To love someone is to give your heart, to give generously. I even enjoyed the sense of control that came with managing every aspect of your life. I thought I could move you. The bitterness in my throat made my nose ache. But in Switzerland, after you saved Chloe, you couldn't even understand why I was angry. Tears fell. I cried as I asked, how could you not understand? Love is supposed to transcend logic. I covered my face. But your logic always wins. I had finally accepted the truth. Adrian Thorne did not love me. He let go of my hand and stumbled back. I turned to leave. He didn't stop me again. Adrian never signed the divorce papers. I heard about him from many people. The golden boy, Adrian Thorne, was not having an easy time. Years of non-stop work had finally taken their toll. After undergoing systematic psychological counseling and treatment, his body had issued a warning. He took his long-unused annual leave and returned to our apartment to recuperate. Friends and both our parents called me, all urging me to reconcile. The reason surprised me. Without exception, everyone said, Adrian can't live without you. I found it ironic. In every previous argument, they had always expected me to be the first to back down. After all, In love, the one who loves more is the weaker one. The day my scenes wrapped, Lucas threw a lavish party for the entire cast and crew in my name. Lucas was a notorious penny pincher. He would never be so generous. Sure enough, when I returned to my dressing room, I found Adrian there. He was wearing a gray sweater and a black overcoat. As tall and cool as ever. He stood up from the sofa the moment I walked in. He had lost a lot of weight, which only sharpened the intimidating aura he naturally possessed. But when he looked at me, his eyes held a wet, wounded look. Lucas took the hint. I'll go make you two some tea. The click of the closing door was loud in the sudden silence of the room. I don't want to sign, Adrian said, walking over and pulling me into an embrace. There was no preamble, just a direct demand. Tell me, what should I do? I sighed. This was Adrian. In matters of the heart, he was always a straight line. He lacked the buffer, the grace, that most adults possessed. So direct it could cut you. Baby, Adrian said when I didn't respond. He took my hand and pressed it to his cheek. Let's not get a divorce. Okay. The warmth of his cheek was so familiar against my palm. I suddenly said, after calming down these past few months, I've thought about it. You weren't wrong to save Chloe. No. Adrian looked up sharply. It was wrong. Otherwise, you wouldn't be divorcing me. You still don't get it. The divorce isn't about Chloe. She was just the trigger. I stared at him for a few seconds. The real reason is that you don't love me. Or maybe you're just sick. Born with an emotional defect you can't fix. I'm getting treatment. Adrian's voice was thick with a nasal tone. I'm seeing a therapist. I continued as if I hadn't heard him. In that situation, she was in more danger than I was. You did the right thing. But I can't get over it. Logically, you were correct. I said. Emotionally, you were wrong. I could feel him trembling. He looked so pathetic in that moment. Like a stray dog. He kept rubbing his cheek against my palm, as if clinging to some piece of evidence. I'm seeing a doctor. Can you give me one more chance? But I don't love you anymore. I pulled my hand away, my voice unnervingly calm. How are we supposed to go on? The wind howled outside. A heavy silence enveloped us. A knock from Lucas broke the spell, setting time in motion again. He entered with a tray, followed by a waiter with tea and snacks. As if oblivious to the tension, Lucas asked, tea or coffee? Coffee, I said, taking a step back. Lucas moved forward, offering the tray to Adrian. Mr. Thorne. It was a blatant, almost rude gesture. Lucas was forcing a change in the atmosphere. Adrian glared at him for a few seconds. As he reached for the tray, his hand collided with Lucas's. In an instant, the tray tipped over. Lucas. At the last second, I instinctively grabbed Lucas's arm. The tray hit the floor with a crash. In a matter of seconds, it was over. Half the scalding tea had soaked the hem of Lucas's shirt. The other half had spilled all over Adrian's hand. In a flash, a large red patch appeared on his pale skin. In the ensuing chaos, a waiter brought a cloth. Adrian's secretary, who had been waiting outside, rushed in at the noise. It was a cacophony. I stood frozen for a long moment before I seemed to react, turning my gaze to Adrian. He was crying. His face was blank, but tears were streaming down, as if he had no control over them. On his mature, masculine face, it was an unsettling sight. What the hell? Lucas muttered. Am I seeing things? My assistant has a first aid kit, I said quickly to the secretary, then took Adrian's unburned hand and led him to the bathroom. The sound of running water drowned out the silence. I held his hand under the tap. His tears dripped onto the marble countertop. I gently wiped them away. Adrian, stop crying. He blankly raised a hand to his cheek. Our red-rimmed eyes met in the mirror. He asked numbly, am I crying? Adrian covered his eyes with his hand, the veins on his neck and the back of his hand bulging. His chest heaved. He asked in a choked voice, that day, is this how you felt? My movements stilled. For some reason, a tidal wave of delayed grief surged into my throat. I blinked desperately, but my vision remained blurry. Stella, Adrian asked, his voice choked with sobs. That day, when I saved Chloe, did you feel even worse than I do now? Large tears splashed onto the counter. The displaced emotions of that day came rushing back, engulfing us both. I'm sorry, Adrian said, roughly wiping his tears. He couldn't even look at me. bending over as if he couldn't bear it. His voice was muffled by his hands as he repeated, "I'm sorry." In that moment, Adrian finally understood. But it was too late. His sobs were hoarse, wretched, and full of grief. I quietly left the bathroom, closing the door behind me. Lucas was smoking on the balcony, outside the glass doors. Heavy leaden clouds hung low. Another winter snow began to fall. He offered me a cigarette. I took it in silence. After a while, I said suddenly, "Lucas, that life lesson you mentioned, I think I understand now." The snow fell thick and fast, blanketing the earth in white. In the silent world, Adrian's faint sobs could be heard. The blizzard had come. Adrian finally signed the divorce papers in the spring. I was filming in the remote Northwest at the time. The conditions were harsh, and I was carrying the entire production on my shoulders, so exhausted that I would fall asleep the moment I finished filming each day. Adrian had a major project that required him to be based in Switzerland. 3 days before he left, he sent me a message late at night, asking if we could meet. I saw the message on the 4th day. The film set had moved, and I was sitting on the roof of a car, gazing at the brilliant night sky. When I finally got a signal, I was mortified and quickly apologized, explaining that I was filming. After a moment's thought, I sent him my location. I followed it with 2 handshake emojis. At first glance, it was more professional than the messages I sent to my business partners. In that moment, I suddenly laughed out loud. Lucas came out and grumbled, "Laughing like that in the middle of the night? Are you losing your mind?" I wrapped the blanket tighter around me and said shakily, "I'm happy." Lucas was holding a tablet. "Let's go over your schedule. You're wrapping up soon. I've packed your schedule with commercial events." That year, my career took off. My schedule was so packed that sleep became a luxury. With the surge in popularity and media attention came a wave of skepticism. Perhaps it was just bad luck, but I kept missing out on major awards. Lucas was philosophical about it. "You can't have your cake and eat it too. You've got the popularity. The rest is up to fate." I was reading a script inside, but I really want it. Lucas handed me a screenplay. "Vincent Liu is making a comeback. He's not using new talent this time. See if you want to go for it." The title on the cover was 4 words. "The Blizzard Has Come." I smiled. It's as good as mine. The Blizzard Has Come took half a year for casting and pre-production, and another half a year to film. It was a troubled production. Its release was delayed again and again due to censorship issues. In my 4th year back in the industry, I turned 30. My career was at its peak. With one exception. I lacked a major, prestigious award. Another winter came. The morning after a heavy snow in the city, I received a call from Lucas. It was the first time I had ever heard my old friend so excited. He was practically shouting into the phone. "The Blizzard Has Come has been nominated." I didn't register it at first. Lucas laughed. "Stella, you're going to be Best Actress." Years after our divorce, I saw Adrian again at the awards ceremony. The Blizzard Has Come, after being shelved for 3 years, had swept the 3 major domestic awards and won the top prize at an international film festival. I was at the height of my fame. Top-tier endorsement deals came flooding in, including one from Adrian's company, Odyssey. Over the years, his career had soared on the back of government support for new energy. The brand's prestige was so high that they had never considered a spokesperson. Their offer to me was a win-win situation. As a sponsor and brand representative, Adrian was invited to the country's most prestigious film awards ceremony. The online chatter had already begun. My retirement for him, our breakup a year later, and my subsequent comeback. The gossip about us was still a hot topic, but none of it had anything to do with me. As I was adjusting my gown in the dressing room, I felt a wave of nerves I couldn't explain. I had poured so much of my heart and time into The Blizzard Has Come. This film meant a great deal to me. I hoped it would bring me a sense of completion. For years to come, I would never forget that night, when the presenter opened the envelope and read my name. The applause was thunderous. I stood up in a daze, shaking hands as I made my way to the stage. When I stood at the podium, the brightest spotlight was on me. In that moment, my eyes met Adrian's for a fleeting second. There was a smile in his eyes, and the glint of tears. I gave him a graceful nod. After my thank you speech, I paused for a few seconds and took a deep breath. "My name is Stella," I said, holding up the award and smiling into the dazzling lights. And like a kite, I will always fly higher and never look back.